Guys, do you know that right now panic is spreading across immigrant communities after reports revealed a major shift in U.S. immigration policy under the Trump administration? Now, thousands of legal immigrants, international students, H-1B workers, and even spouses of American citizens are now, facing the terrifying possibility of being forced to leave the United States before applying for permanent residency. For many families, this is more than politics. It's their entire future on the line. People who have spent years building careers, homes, businesses, and families in America are suddenly living with uncertainty, fear, and even anxiety. Immigration lawyers are, already warning that these changes could completely reshape the lives of thousands of, hundreds of thousands of people.
President Trump is changing the green card rules. Becoming a citizen of the United States is not a right, it is a privilege. By changing the green card rules, President Trump is once again turning it back into a privilege. People will no longer be able to wait inside the United States for a green card. They must apply and stay in their country of origin until they get an answer. Foreigners in the U.S. who want a green card will have to leave the United States, go to their country to apply. The Trump administration made the announcement to the green card changes on Friday. I have to agree with the administration in the fact that your first visit to this country should not be applying for a green card.
Don't Americans have the right to fall in love, to marry somebody born in another country, to build a life together? Why are we moving toward a system where American citizens are going to have to leave the United States and live overseas just to stay with their spouse, just to start a family with their husband or wife? Right now, spouses from more than 75 countries are already barred from coming to America. That's half the world. And now the people already here have to be separated too? That's what Trump's new memo says. You can't adjust your status here unless it's extraordinary circumstances if you marry a U.S. citizen. What is America becoming? Look, secure the border, deport violent criminals. Nobody can argue with that. But stop treating love, marriage, and family like there's some kind of fraud by default. Because the United States was built by immigrants, including the Trump family. So wake up, Congress. Wake up, America. America needs immigration laws that are strong, fair, realistic, and humane. Not just for immigrants, but for Americans and American families too.
USCIS has just released a new policy memo that has everyone panicking because the title makes it seem that if you want to apply for a green card, you must now leave the United States and return to your home country to apply. But let me break this down for you and tell you what this actually means. The problem with this policy memo is that it makes it seem like if you have a green card application pending, or if you plan to apply in the near future, that you must immediately leave the United States. However, the policy memo does not override existing immigration laws because there are federal statutes already in place that still allow many people to apply for their green cards while remaining in the United States. What this does tell us is that USCIS is going to start scrutinizing, meaning it's going to be very more tougher and harder on green card applications, much more aggressively than they were before. So we can expect more RFE, more delays, and more discretion, meaning that the officer has more room to deny your application, so there's less room for mistakes. It doesn't mean that you need to panic, that you need to leave the United States immediately, or that you should just give up on applying. That's not what that means. What it means is that there are less room for mistakes and errors. You have to make sure that you're submitting your application correctly the first time.
Oh my God, Trump just announced something that affects millions of people living in America right now. For over 50 years, if you were legally in the United States and wanted a green card, you could apply right there without leaving. That process ends now. The Trump administration just announced that all foreigners in the US, people married to American citizens, work visa holders, students, refugees, must now leave America first and apply for a green card from their home country. So for the people from countries where the US has paused visa processing, going home to apply means potentially never coming back. Immigration lawyers are calling it a catch-22, go home and get permanently separated from your family, or stay and lose your legal status. Over 600,000 people already in the US apply for green cards every year. A former senior USCIS official said it plainly. The goal is very explicit. They want fewer people to get permanent residency because it leads to citizenship. They want to block that path. This isn't about illegal immigration. These are people in America legally, working, paying taxes, married to Americans, building lives. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Share this so everyone can see it. Spread the news. Follow me on YouTube and Substack, and check out links in my bio if you want to support. See you in the next one.
The Trump administration is moving to dramatically limit something called adjustment of status, and that's a process that currently allows many immigrants to apply for a green card while staying inside the country. Right now, many people can stay here legally while the case is processed. They keep working, they stay with their family, and keep building their life in America. But under this new policy direction, many applicants may now have to leave the United States and finish the process overseas through a U.S. embassy or a consulate. Now, we're not talking about a small number of people. The U.S. approved around 1 million green cards last year, and about half of those people already living inside the United States adjusting their status. That means potentially hundreds of thousands of future applicants could be affected. And this includes people already here legally, workers, students, H-1B visa holders, spouses of American citizens. Now, the reason this story is exploding today is because USCIS is now publicly saying adjustment of status may only happen in extraordinary circumstances. And immigration attorneys are sounding the alarm because nobody fully knows what qualifies as extraordinary. Critics are warning that this could create massive delays, family separation, and huge backlogs at U.S. embassies around the world. And one giant question still hasn't been answered. What happens to people already in the process right now? If this moves forward at full scale, this could become one of the biggest immigration system changes in years.
So this morning, I woken up to the news that Donald Trump has just authorized a massive shift in how immigration works in the United States. So if you are a temporary visa holder, you must now return home before you can apply for your green card. And not only could this take months and possibly years to process, but you could also receive a 10-year ban on re-entering the United States if you have overstayed your visa previously. Trump is clearly trying to bottleneck legal immigration and reduce the number of green cards they issue. And I suspect this will affect a huge amount of people and families who are planning to reside in the United States. So what are your thoughts? It's obviously a major development in US immigration policy, which will affect potentially millions of people over the next few years.
This is major breaking news. A lot of people are waking up confused after USCIS announced a major policy change affecting adjustment of status cases. And honestly, one of the biggest issues is just how suddenly these changes are happening. Here's what every immigrant needs to understand. USCIS announced that it is going back to the original intent of adjustment of status, and that adjustment of status will now be only for extraordinary circumstances. They're basically saying you should pursue your immigrant visa abroad. But there's also a 75-country indefinite pause on immigrant visas. So this is not about legal or illegal. It's about destroying the entire system. When immigration policies shift overnight, real people are the ones left dealing with the consequences. Families, professionals, entrepreneurs, students, people who already invested years, thousands of dollars, and their futures into this process. What worries many immigration attorneys right now is the possibility that these changes could create even more delays, uncertainty, and discretionary decision-making in green card cases. And when a system becomes so unpredictable, people stop knowing what rules they're actually playing by. Strategy matters more than ever. Immigration cases can't be approached with a copy and paste filing or generic advice. Every case needs to be analyzed carefully with a long-term plan in mind, because policy changes can completely change the landscape overnight. If you currently have a pending case or are planning to file for adjustment of status, or are unsure how this announcement may affect you, speak to a licensed immigration attorney before making any major decisions. There are already talks about lawsuits, and this will be challenged in the courts. Follow me for more immigration updates explained in plain English.
Adjustment of status just got a lot more dangerous. Immigration just released a shocking new policy memo emphasizing that adjustment of status is not a right. They are now no longer saying that adjustment of status is a normal process to get a green card. And they are expecting everybody to process for their green cards at a U.S. embassy abroad, not adjust your status. This is a huge philosophical shift for U.S. immigration, because for years, adjustment of status through marriage inside the United States has been very common. Since the time I have been born, 50 plus years ago, I don't want to age myself. Now, USCIS is basically telling immigration officers to heavily scrutinize every adjustment case. The memo specifically tells immigration officers to look negatively at people who overstayed their visas, people with status violations, people with unauthorized employment, people with conduct inconsistent with their original visa purpose. Now, immigration is also emphasizing preconceived intent much more heavily. So that old 90-day rule, wait 90 days and then get married about, that we always talk about, that may be down in the garbage now. We honestly do not know yet, or even know if USCIS is going to effectively ignore that 90-day rule and do something completely different. Because this memo strongly suggests they may start asking, what was your real intention when you came into the USA? Did you really intend to come temporarily? Or did you intend to stay permanently all along, even if you married 180 days after you came here to the US? So this means entering on a tourist visa and later marrying a US citizen is going to be much more heavily scrutinized. People with overstays, unauthorized employment, questionable travel history, inconsistent social media, prior violations, inconsistent statements could all potentially face much more strenuous questioning at an adjustment interview. And the memo even says applicants may need outstanding equities to overcome these negative factors. And that is a real dangerous phrase, because what qualifies as outstanding equities? Who the hell knows? So my argument is immigration cannot simply invent new requirements through policy memos. So I expect major litigation over this.
The emotional impact of this policy is becoming impossible to ignore. Across social media and immigrant communities, people are, expressing fear about losing everything they worked for. Some are worried they may be separated from their spouses or even their children for years. Others fear that leaving the US could permanently block them from returning. Imagine spending years studying, working, paying taxes, and building a life in America, only to suddenly face the possibility of starting over from scratch in another country. Immigration attorneys say, many families now feel trapped in a system where every option comes with serious risks and life-changing consequences. Now, this immigration policy shift is sending shockwaves through immigrant communities across the world. For decades, legal immigrants living in the United States had the option to apply for permanent residency without leaving the country from, a process called adjustment of status. It gave people stability. It allowed families to remain together while, waiting for immigration decisions. Most importantly, it gave immigrants hope that if they followed the rules, worked hard, and stayed patient, they could eventually build a permanent future in America. Now, that certainty is disappearing. Under this, new direction, many visa holders may now be required to leave the United States and complete their green card processing from, their home countries through American embassies and consulates. And for many immigrants, this news has triggered pure panic. People are, scared because this policy doesn't just affect paperwork; it affects real lives. Imagine being an international student who spent years studying in America, graduating, finding a job, and finally feeling like your future was beginning to come together. Now imagine hearing that you may have to leave the country and wait overseas for months or even years without knowing if you'll ever be allowed back in. That uncertainty is terrifying. For H-1B workers, the fear is even deeper. Many have built entire careers in the United States. They have mortgages, children in school, businesses, and even families who depend on them. Some have spent over a decade trying to secure permanent residency legally. Now, many are, asking the same question. What happens to everything we built if we are forced to leave? And perhaps the most heartbreaking stories are coming from mixed status families, especially spouses of American citizens. In the past, many spouses could, remain safely in the United States while their green card applications were processed. But under these changes, some may now be forced to leave the country and apply from overseas. For families, this creates emotional devastation. Parents are, terrified of being separated from their children. Couples fear long-distance marriages that could last years. Some immigrants are even, afraid they may never return at all. And the fear isn't exaggerated. Immigration attorneys warn that people who previously overstayed visas could trigger, automatic 10-year bans from re-entering the United States once they leave. Others worry that delays at embassies worldwide could trap applicants outside the country indefinitely. And that is why critics are calling this policy a catch-22. If immigrants leave the US, they risk separation, delays, or even denial. If they stay, they risk losing legal status. Either way, many families feel cornered. And another major reason immigrants are, panicking is because nobody fully understands how these rules will be applied. The government has mentioned that extraordinary circumstances may allow some people to remain in the country during processing. But immigration lawyers say there is still very little clarity about what actually qualifies as extraordinary. That uncertainty is creating massive anxiety. People don't know whether they should continue their applications, leave immediately, or even wait and hope for clarification. Meanwhile, experts are, warning that global visa processing systems may become overwhelmed. Nearly 500,000 green card applications that were once handled inside the United States could now be pushed to embassies and consulates overseas. That means longer interview wait times, slower approvals, and growing backlogs affecting tourists, students, workers, and immigrants worldwide. Supporters of the policy argue that these changes strengthen immigration enforcement and prevent abuse of temporary visas. But critics believe the real objective is to slow legal immigration itself by making the process so difficult and even expensive and even uncertain that fewer people are able to succeed. And regardless of political opinions, one reality is becoming very clear. Immigrants everywhere are afraid of, losing their future, afraid of losing their families, afraid that years of sacrifice and hard work could disappear because of one policy shift. For many people, this is no longer just an immigration debate. It's a life-changing moment that could determine where they live, where their children grow up, and whether the American dream they spent years chasing still exists. Guys, what do you think? Drop your thoughts on the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share as well. And until next time, bye-bye.